Galactic Date 20XX. After exploring the far reaches of space, the intrepid explorer Captain Olimar returns home from his mission with a set of red, blood-stained hands. He is quickly arrested for his crimes on planet PNF 404, where he murdered numerous beasts on his mission to escape, directly violating the Starfleet Prime Directive. After his ship is seized, Olimar is sent to prison. Being his only employee of any merit, the president of Hakatate Freight attempts to bail him out, only to be distraught at the asking price of a whopping 10,000 pokos. Olimar is set free, but is now struck with a massive debt to repay the bail money, and so he heads back to PNF 404 to collect treasure. However, this time, as the president fervently reminds him, Olimar must complete his quest without killing any unnecessary life forms, in keeping with the Prime Directive of Starfleet. So we start off our journey in classic Pikmin fashion by crash landing on the planet, of course. Fortunately, our ship didn't take down any creatures on the way down, so we can get straight to work with a clear conscience so far. Right off the bat, I grab a single Pikmin from the group of 5 at the start, and instead of brutally murdering this Bulborb, I use this wall to clip the Pikmin out of bounds and cause myself a Pikmin extinction. Fortunately, Starfleet has nothing against killing Pikmin, because technically they only exist because of us, and their lives belong to Olimar now and forever. We end day 1 with 0 kills, but unfortunately that's about to change. As soon as we land, the red onion is now back at the base, along with Louie for some reason, and it gives us a single red Pikmin to work with. If we approach the onion as Louie, the tutorial will give us 1 more, but unfortunately 2 Pikmin isn't going to be enough to progress. So it is with a heavy heart that I watch as the first murders of the run are committed. I kill a 1 pellet to get enough Pikmin to carry the Bulborb, and then I kill the Bulborb so I have enough to carry the 5 pellet that eventually spawns on this ledge, bringing our kills up to 3. I then skip 2 more days and come back for the 10 pellet on this ledge. This now gives me enough Pikmin to break the 15 barrier, locking us inside the base, and with 3 more 5 pellets we killed, we get enough Pikmin to break the 2nd barrier. This brings our kill count to 7 and our Pikmin count to 38. From this point on, we won't be able to kill any enemies that don't hold treasure, so it's going to be hard to keep our numbers up. With that said though, I do have a small confession to make, which I didn't realize until way after my first recording session, and that is the fact that I actually could have gotten away with 1 less kill using the day 1 extinction method. If I had simply continued to end the days after getting my first 10 pellet in order to continue harvesting that same one, I could have gotten 43 Pikmin with just 6 kills instead of 38 with 7 kills, which is what I ended up with. So yeah, don't tell the president about that one, just thought I'd mention it for the record. Also, because I am very dumb and bad at math, I put the kill counter up to 8 instead of 7 for whatever reason, a mistake that I also didn't notice until going through the footage again after my first 2 recording sessions and finishing the entire debt. So if you're wondering as to why the kill count is 1 higher than it should be for all of this footage, that is why. It will be fixed later. Anyways, continuing on, I break down the barrier and decide to head straight for the cave since I can't kill either of these Bulborbs and I don't really have an effective way of getting the utter scrap back without Pikmin casualties. On the first floor, the Emergence Cave, we run into our first real challenge, getting back 2 treasures without killing these Bulborbs. The bottle cap is easy enough to grab, but the orange gives me a little bit more trouble. I use a strategy I appropriately call Louie baiting to lure the enemies away with Louie to give my Pikmin a chance to snatch it. Unfortunately, I still lose 2 Pikmin in the process, but hey, could have been worse. On the final floor, I discover these purple flowers and immediately forget my own rules. I throw 5 Pikmin inside, which causes 1 to wither away and die, so I have to reset, since violet candypop buds do in fact appear in the Piklopedia. On my second go around, I get 4 purple Pikmin from each flower, and instead of grabbing the globe now, I decide to leave and come back so I can get another 8 purples. With a simple Louie bait to the side, I managed to acquire it without any casualties, giving us access to the Awakening Wood. Upon landing in the Awakening Wood, I realize I have a rather large issue. Since I can't kill any enemies, raising my numbers is going to be a huge challenge, and with only 36 Pikmin at this point, my options were very limited. Luckily, I remembered there was a golden glint beetle over by this pot who drops 3 red 5 pellets who I could hit twice without actually killing him, bringing our numbers up to 51. After tearing down the gate, I once again used Louie baiting to distract the creeping chrysanthemum, allowing Olimar to make a straight dash for the Hole of Beasts. The first floor goes smoothly as there are only a few sheer grubs to dash past, and I managed to slip through with only 1 red Pikmin Pikmin killed. On sublevel 2, I grab 8 more purple Pikmin, and on the 3rd floor, I grab all the treasures with ease since there are no enemies to worry about. Unfortunately, on sublevel 4, we are forced to increase our kill count for the first time since the tutorial, since this red bulborb has so rudely swallowed our Game & Watch, which we all know is the 8th deadly sin. On the final floor, I'm forced to perform another unspeakable murder, as there is no getting around killing the bosses if I want all the treasure. So with a dead Empress Bulblax and treasure gauge in hand, I cringe as our kill counter raises into double digits, not realizing at the time that I am in fact bad at math and was actually only at 9 kills. With 24 purples in our party, I can now weigh down this barrier and access the White Flower Garden. The first floor here is very similar to the first floor of Hole of Beasts, as there's many sheer grubs, and I once again have to sacrifice a Pikmin to get through. Floor 2 is a breeze, as I can simply use reds to carry treasure past the fiery blowhogs. On the 3rd floor, we grab our 12 white Pikmin, careful not to murder any of the flowers this time, and I use them to collect this roll of tape. After breezing through sublevel 4, which has no enemies and just poison, I head to fight the boss. The burrowing snagret goes down quickly for my purples, however I foolishly threw them at these eggs immediately after the combat, causing a swarm of these bugs to spray out and die instantly from the shockwaves. Well, that's a reset. That's just unlucky, man. Is that a guaranteed spawn, I wonder? It might be. When I exit the cave, my number 1 priority is going to be to get back the 2nd globe so I can access the Perplexing pool. I take my whites and sneak past the creeping chrysanthemum once more to begin working on this gate. Meanwhile, Louie starts harvesting these berries so I can get access to ultra spicy and ultra bitter sprays. By using the knapsack we just acquired, we can glitch our way up this ledge to the purple plant without having to break the other poison gate, which saves a lot of time and hassle. By the time I finish harvesting, all of our squad is done with the gate, and so I have them build the bridge to let the others across. With only a little time to spare, we've retrieved the globe and acquired enough berries to unlock both sprays. The next day, I land at the Perplexing pool, and I once again use my knapsack to climb up into the yellow Pikmin base, since I can't kill any of the other enemies blocking the normal path. Unfortunately, since there are only pellet posies and no freestanding pellets here, I am forced to work with only the 5 yellows that the game gives me. The only way to get more yellows without killing enemies at this time would just be to use a yellow candypop bud, so I go into Glutton's kitchen to do just that. On the first floor of this cave, I realize that dwarf ball bears are actually much easier to lure than dwarf ball borbs, as they can see the captains from farther away and they don't always return back to where they originally spawned. This allows me to easily Louie bait all of the enemies in this room into a corner and grab the chalk without any issues. Sublevel 2 is unfortunately too difficult for me to deal with at the moment since there are too many factors working against me. Treasures often spawn in high spots that require more yellow Pikmin, and if they don't, the bread bugs will grab them before I can, making them unobtainable without a kill. So I decide to leave this floor for another visit. On sublevel 3, I'm able to bolster my yellows a little bit by transforming them with this yellow candypop bud, and with some careful maneuvering, we managed to grab all the treasures without any deaths on either side. This floor has a spotty ball bear with several dwarf ones following it around, along with a few bread bugs who like to take the other treasures. Since I can only kill the mother ball bear holding the treasure, I once again decide to skip the floor until we can come back with more resources later on. On floor 5, we find a number of annoyingly placed cannon beetles along with hordes of dwarf ball bears. Luckily, since enemies killing one another do not contribute towards my kill count, I can bait the cannon beetles into killing the ball bears for me, and then distract them with my captains while Pikmin carry back our treasure. Now on paper, this might seem like it would make the challenge easier, but you'll very quickly realize that this actually made it a lot harder in some areas. If there was an enemy that could kill another enemy, I had to make sure that that happened. On the final floor, I use my bitter spray to take out the giant bread bug since it swallowed our eraser, and I try to grab as many other treasures as I can before the other bread bugs make them unobtainable. Back on the surface, I find there's very little for me to do in this area without the blues, so I get started on a couple bridges and gates, as well as moving a few treasures closer to the base, and then I just kind of call it a day. Starting off day 7, we land back at the Awakening Wood, and with my tiny squad of yellows, I head off to break the electric gate guarding the blues. I have to skirt past a few enemies here and throw the yellows over the gate in order to not get skewered. Meanwhile, Louie heads off to the other side of the map, and because he recently completed his lifeguard training, he teaches these 3 reds how to swim across before working on this bridge. However, because he is Louie and he is incompetent, he lets one drown and die in the process. After the bridge is built, I lure this annoying frog out of the way, and with some well-placed throws, I use purples to cheese this puzzle and get the badminton birdie. Meanwhile, Olimar and his crew finish off the electric gate, allowing me to recruit the blue Pikmin. And unfortunately, I am stuck with just the 5 of them, just like my yellows to begin with. Louie, in the meantime, finishes building this poison bridge, and I find a golden glint beetle near the snaggered hole that I can use to get a few more pellets. I got really excited when I saw that they're blue because my blue numbers are so low, and then I cringed as I realized that I am dumb because there's no way I can possibly get these pellets to the other side of the map before night, so I end up giving all of them to the yellows instead. On day 8, I go back to Valley of Repose and immediately grab an above ground treasure near my base. Since I never actually completed the tutorial, the game thinks I just got my first treasure, and so the day ends automatically and kills all my Pikmin to sunset, so I have to reset and try again. Careful not to make the same mistake twice, I move the treasure close to my base this time so I can collect it at the end of the day instead. Meanwhile, I give my measly 5 blue Pikmin steroids in order to break down this gate faster, but it still takes them half the day to get through. And it's at this point that I realize numbers are going to be a huge problem, unless I want to spend dozens of in-game days revisiting the Awakening Wood for the flint beetle pellets. However, the next section of this area provides me with a much faster and easier solution. The red cannon beetles in Pikmin 2 shoot giant rocks, which actually home in on our captains, and these rocks can kill both other enemies and even themselves if I play my cards right. And since enemies killing each other is fair game, I manipulate the boulders in this next section to clear out almost every enemy, allowing me to significantly boost up our blue Pikmin numbers without shedding any blood. If anyone asks, I had nothing to do with it. I return to Valley of Repose again and finally grab the Duracell battery from the tutorial, along with this rig guarded by the burrowing Snagret. Then I waste an incredible amount of time trying to get a cannon beetle to kill this fiery Bulblax of the boulder to no avail, and Olimar unfortunately dies in the process. So I cut my losses and decide to leave that for another day. I cheese this puzzle, normally requiring yellows, with my purples to get a bear statue and bring it back alongside a squashed can, all while Louie baiting this dwarf bulborb in order to prevent further bloodshed. On day 10, I once again try to lure the boulders into the fiery Bulblax, which proves to be much easier now that the water dumple corpses aren't blocking the path anymore, allowing me to successfully acquire his treasure without increasing my kill count. And I head off to the Frontier Cavern just before the day ends. On sub-level 1, I immediately get the worst possible RNG, as this poisonous beetle spawns and wakes up a fuzzy bulborb right beside my base, so I reset for a better layout. On my second try, I actually end up in the same spot, except the bulborb spawned elsewhere, so I've got a little bit more breathing room this time. I start tracking down these poison beetles without attracting other enemies, since they always drop guaranteed bitter sprays. I can't completely kill them, but I can hit each one twice, and use a glitch where Olimar and Louie drink the potion at the same time to get 2 potions per drop. The second floor goes much smoother as there are 2 more cannon beetles I can use to get rid of all the enemies and safely grab some late Christmas presents. Sublevel 3 presents a much bigger challenge as we once again have to deal with a bulbear who rudely swallowed our treasure. There's also a bulbman on this floor and a whole horde of small bulbears that I can't kill. My first attempt ends in failure since one of them decides to eat my white Pikmin and die from food poisoning. On my second attempt, I Louie bait all of them into this corner and discovered that the laws of physics don't apply to bulbears, since they can apparently bite through walls.
Oh, what? You can't... Okay, he's gonna eat me through the wall now.
With all the enemies distracted, I bring Olimar in from behind with my purples, and with a couple bitter sprays, I manage to kill the big one and get the bell out without harming anyone else. The ship then scolds me for murdering an innocent creature and having the audacity to sell its corpse on the black market. I promptly ignore him and grab the last few treasures on this floor before continuing on. Floor number 4 lets me net 4 additional purples, and I use my white Pikmin to speed the treasures back without any casualties or kills. On floor 5, I actually get incredibly lucky as one of the enemies I needed to kill here to get the rocket fish spawns right beside my base, meaning that I don't have to deal with any of the dweevils or mamutas on this floor. I also get 4 more purples for my efforts and the ability to do a super punch. On sub-level 6, I use the cannon beetle to kill a bulbman and add 1 to my party. I then use the boulders once again to get rid of the other enemies and use my blues to take these chest pieces out of water, which puts the cannon beetle by my base in checkmate. Sub-level 7 is rather uneventful since no enemies ate any of my treasure, so with my speedy whites and some clever Louie baiting, I managed to get everything back without much trouble. The boss of this cave is another Empress Bulblax, however this time she is constantly giving birth to hordes of horrifying demon children who want my blood. And if this floor wasn't hard enough normally, I have to find a way to kill the boss and get the treasure back without killing a single one of them. I start off by throwing all my Pikmin onto this ledge since I'm pretty sure I won't be able to outmaneuver them past the horde. I then send Louie to collect them on the other side, while Olimar slowly rounds up the babies against this wall. Since there's actually a hard cap on how many enemies the game can handle, the Empress eventually stops giving birth and goes back to sleep. And with a little bit more strategic Louie baiting, I managed to get every single child stuck and unable to do anything.
Looks like we got all the children in this corner. This is what I do to them. I get them stuck in a corner so that I don't have to deal with them.
After remembering why I got fired as a babysitter, I finish off the boss and get the rush boots, leaving dozens of orphan Bulblaxes to rot in this hole for the rest of their lives. I decide to end off here for my first recording session, and in between now and my next stream, I spend a whole day running back and forth to the Frontier Cavern over and over. This lets me stock up on bitter sprays, which I realized I desperately need on the first floor, as well as get a few more purples on later levels, which I will need for the late game. Starting off my second stream, I land in Valley of Repose for one final day, and then proceed to grab the final above ground treasure in order to become king of this area. What I thought would be an incredibly difficult task actually ended up being pretty easy, as one well-placed purple Pikmin managed to successfully bait both the green cannon beetle and the blowhog into ignoring me while I stole the crown. I gather up the corpses whose deaths I had absolutely no part in, and head off to the final cave of this area by knapsack climbing this hill, because now that I'm a king, I couldn't possibly stoop so low as to do manual labor and knock down a gate. On the first floor of the Subterranean complex, I get some pretty awful treasure placement where everything is guarded by bulb orbs, so I end up having to burn through some bitter sprays just to get by. The second floor starts off with a bang, and I lose one of my white Pikmin to an explosion trying to get this gear. Fortunately though, the rest of the floor goes by without much hassle since the whites can generally outrun explosion timers. On sub-level 3, I actually get an incredibly lucky spawn on my first try. Since one of these cannon beetles has a treasure, I have to use the other cannon beetle to take him out to prevent raising my kill count, meaning if they didn't spawn right beside each other, I would have been forced to reset. Luckily, they decided to hang out today, so I forced the one without the treasure to violently murder his friend, and I once again take no responsibility for these unfortunate events. Sub-level 4 is a rest floor, which allows me to get a few more whites, and on floor 5, I run past a massive horde of bombs, which my whites can easily outspeed. Sub-level 6 is where things start to get a little bit more tricky, since there are hordes of lightning beetles, bomb beetles, and dweevils who want to take my stuff, and I'm not allowed to hurt any of them. Luckily, I managed to bait the bombs into blowing up the dweevils for me, and I use my whites to snag the treasures before they can get shocked or exploded. Sub-level 7 turns out to be one of the hardest floors of this entire challenge so far, as there are 2 Gatling Grinks here and a ton of bombs. The real issue here is that the one on the pedestal that can't move is always the one with the treasure, and the wandering one is just out to troll me. If the wandering one had the treasure, I could easily lure him off the cliff to avoid getting a kill, but the only way to avoid a kill in reality is to keep this one alive, and use its attacks to kill the stationary one. Unfortunately, the wandering one seems to have a limit to how far it's willing to go from its original spawn, meaning that I end up resetting several times before the 2 Groinks end up adjacent. Eventually though, after a long grind, I finally get the positioning I want, and I once again watch as the inhabitants of this cave brutally murder one another.
Yes! Shoot me, you beautiful creature! I'm a genius! Tell me I'm a genius.
I then lure the other one off the cliff for good measure, allowing him to join his friend in the afterlife, and allowing me to get back all the treasures. Sub-level 8 nets me some more purples, which I will eventually need by the time we get to the Wistful Wild, and on the final floor we get our only kill of this entire cave, by executing the man at legs before he even has a chance to attack. Now that the Valley of Repose is done, I decide to head back to clear Awakening Wood. I once again get a few more pellets from this glint beetle, and then head back to the original blue onion location to get the paint I left behind, which will go perfectly with this Carmex for cold sores that's up on this ledge. Finally, I grab the strawberry with my whites and speed it past the bulborbs before they can react, which finishes off all the above ground treasures in this area. Since there's just 2 caves left, we decide to tackle the Hole of Beasts first, and right off the bat, we sadly have to get another kill, since there's a giant orange bulborb here with a treasure and no other means of getting him killed. The next couple floors are a breeze since the enemies don't really hurt me, so they're more of an annoyance than an actual obstacle. Sublevel 4 puts me in another sad situation where I actually have to get 2 kills since the Wollywog and the Glint Beetle stole my stuff. So far, this cave is not on a great streak. Floor 5 gets me some bamboo, and floor 6 is where things get interesting. This floor has a giant orange bulborb with a treasure, and at first I thought I'd simply have to get another kill. However, there's a skull in this corner that has a bomb trap which spawns on top of it, meaning that I knew it had to be possible to get the bulborb dead without blooding my own hands. I end up resetting quite a lot here, either because I make mistakes or because the bulborb simply didn't spawn close enough to where the bomb was.
Okay, hold on, I have an idea. Oh, that was so close!
Eventually, though, I managed to get a really nice spawn where the bulborb I needed was right beside the skull. So with a bit of softening up from my powered up fists, I lure him into this corner and allow the environment to get the kill for me. With some careful maneuvering and too many bitter sprays, I managed to get the treasure back and head off to the final floor, where I murder this Emperor Bulblack so that he can join his wife in the afterlife, and then I take his Iron Man suit so I can resist fire. The last cave of the area is the Snagret Hole, which unfortunately ended up being another bloodbath with another 7 kills. For whatever reason, the devs decided to put a lot of treasures inside enemies in this area, which kind of forced my hand. The first victim on the list is this orange bulborb on the first floor, who forces me to waste a bitter spray because the A button is bad. Floor 2 was simple enough, although long and tedious, and on floor 3 we kill a Snagret and take his sausage, which somehow stayed preserved for all these years in this supposedly post-apocalyptic world. Yeah, sometimes it's better not to question the logic. Sublevel 4 has a cannon beetle with a treasure, but since there's another cannon beetle in the area, we can force them to hurt each other without getting involved, at least, you know, legally speaking. So I reset until they spawn in close proximity and watch a brutal death that I had absolutely nothing to do with. Floor 5 gets my hands dirty again, though, with the death of this beetle who messes with my treasure gauge, whose name I definitely remember, and this random dwarf bulborb who falls from the sky. I'm not really sure what they were thinking with this one. When looking back at the footage though, I did wonder if there was any chance of getting either of these enemies to fall off the cliff without me dealing the final blow. Larger enemies tend to be easier to lure since they can just walk over the small ledges, but maybe there's a way to bitter spray them and push them somehow. I didn't really have any success with testing it after the fact, but if anyone wants to try and have success with it, let me know in the comments, and I will redo this entire challenge. Sublevel 6 is an unfortunate bloodbath though, where I have to rely on RNG. I know there's 4 treasures here, but 2 of them are inside enemies. And since I can't touch the beetle messing with my treasure gauge, whose name I definitely remember, I just have to start killing and hope I get the right ones, or reset until I do. Luckily though, I managed to kill the correct Snagret and the correct dwarf bulborb on my very first try, and all the treasures just happened to line up in one area, so yeah, that's pretty nice. And our 7th and final kill of this cave is of course our friend the pileated Snagret, who goes down without resistance, because he let his guard down thinking I was a pacifist, only to get beheaded for taking my Power Ranger suit. How dare you. Upon returning to the surface, the Hakatate ship congratulates us for paying off our debt with the fewest possible casualties, which at this point is 26. We return home triumphantly to repay our loan for Olimar's bail, only to realize that Louie has fallen behind. As staying on an uncivilized planet is directly against the Prime Directive, the President orders us to hunt Louie down and bring him to justice. He also comes along so that we can get more treasure under the noses of Starfleet while they assume we're hunting Louie, and he insists that we won't get caught as long as we continue to kill as few enemies as possible. Before my next stream, I decided that I wanted to make this challenge a little bit more interesting. On day 31 and beyond, once you reach the Perplexing pool, the area gets more difficult, spawning many dwarf bullbears, a mother bullbear, and even a beady longlegs right outside our base. Now, a normal sane person would try to finish this area before that time to avoid dealing with more difficult enemies, but me being me, I decide to go through and end the days over and over until we reach day 31 before continuing. Starting off day 31, I bring my blues over to work on this gate. This water dumple gets very confused as to why I'm not murdering him and his kin, and so is forced to decide between protecting his territory or letting a pacifist go peacefully. He continues to writhe in indecision until the gate goes down and we run off. The president, meanwhile, tracks down the bullbear who is hanging out in the middle of the map, and I let him stand behind a wall to keep the bullbear distracted while I work on other things, knowing that the president is an incompetent CEO and is probably no good at adventuring anyways. I get this cheap knockoff replica of an onion and surprisingly don't end up waking the beady longlegs. This unfortunately led to a confidence boost that would come back to bite me later. I swap out the president for a blue Pikmin so I can show him the ropes of adventuring, and then proceed to tear down the electric fence and drain the lake. Next, I send Olimar, our more competent captain, to start working on this electric gate, and I let the president do some boring hard labor by digging up this shell. Before the day is up, the president gets his first taste of blood by taking out this bloister, since there's no way of getting it to kill itself. I'm actually pretty happy about this though, because the bloister's tail gives a ton of Pikmin, and it also drops a couple 10 pellets, so we get a nice boost to our numbers here. Starting off day 32, I set up another blue Pikmin behind this wall in hopes that the bullbear will wander by and get distracted, and sure enough, it gets stuck once more. Turns out these harder enemies wouldn't make this area much worse after all.
Be a problem, actually. She doesn't seem to be wanting so.
After our harrowing incident, we grabbed this ragu from behind the electric fence we broke down the previous day, and began working on the last black gate. Since I didn't think bitter spray actually works on beady, which I could be wrong because I didn't actually test it, I just assumed, we have no choice to run the Pikmin past and hope they don't get squashed. Once the black gate is down, I head out to the last section of the area we haven't touched and proceed to cheese the hell out of this scale puzzle. I get the treasure with only minimal casualties and way too many bitter sprays, and I also grab this lid we got down from the high ledge on my very first visit to the area. Fortunately, I never actually built the bridge since I was avoiding the shearwigs, so the Pikmin take the treasures the long way around. Otherwise, they probably would have aggravated the spotty bullbear who is trapped right beside the unbuilt bridge. Before the day ends, we snag whatever this is from the other high ledge, which completes all the above ground treasures in the Perplexing pool. Now that we're ready to tackle some caves, I start off with the Citadel of Spiders. This cave actually ends up being very easy since you're supposed to do this much earlier on, but the last time I was here I only had 9 yellows, so I decided to wait. Floor 1 we get a love nugget, floor 2 we murder an unfortunate wollywog, and sublevel 3 is incredibly tedious because of these snitch bugs, but is otherwise uneventful. Sublevel 4 forces me to kill a crab for his loot and very rudely places another treasure behind a crab we can't kill. On the final floor we take out the beady longlegs and lament the fact that we have now just taken as many lives as Olimar had ship parts. On day 33, we make a quick stop back to Glutton's kitchen for a handful of treasures that we left behind. I kill another bullbear for his loot and grab a donut on the way out since the president was very hungry. Now with 31 kills, Olimar begins to worry they might get arrested by Starfleet anytime soon for their misdeeds. The president, however, being the greedy corporate CEO he is, refuses to give up the hunt and orders Olimar to help cover up the evidence instead. So they head off to the shower room in order to clean their blood-stained hands and avoid going back to prison. Floor 1 is pretty much uneventful, but on floor 2, Olimar discovers a bar of soap which he can use to wash away the stench of blood, and considering he's killed 31 innocent lives so far, the smell is probably going to be pretty bad at this point. Sublevel 3 is where things get a little bit trickier since the enemies start falling from the sky for some reason right beside my base, and I'm not allowed to kill any of them. Luckily, I managed to lure this wollywog into the corner, and I proceed to track down the purple jellyfloat with the treasure. Sublevel 5 is littered with lots of annoying enemies, including bulborbs, fiery blowhogs, and even more wollywogs. I managed to snag the first treasure without incident from this watery grate, and then cleverly use the wights to take it the rest of the way back. This forces them to take the long way around away from all the enemies since the shortest path has some water on it. My luck doesn't last though, as my next treasure is guarded by just about every enemy on the floor. My heart stopped for a moment as I was carrying the last treasure as a dwarf bulborb ate one of my white Pikmin. If the bulborb swallows, the poison will kill it and then I'd be forced to reset the entire floor, which I'd been doing for quite a while now. So I literally sit beside it and continuously bitter spray it until the treasure gets back, and then run straight for the holes before it can swallow. I'd originally thought when I went to grind bitter sprays that I'd gone a little bit overboard, but it was at this point with only 7 remaining that I realized I was going to need a whole lot more if I wanted to survive this challenge. Sublevel 6 was another challenging one, since there's a large orange bulborb and a wollywog guarding the hallway with all the treasure. With some clever movement though, and I guess this. I guess I can't call it Louie baiting anymore since Louie is gone. Ollie baiting. With some successful ollie baiting, I managed to distract the bulborb and get him stuck on a wall while I snag the treasure. The last treasure on this floor is a rubber ducky in the water surrounded by a horde of dwarf bulbors. Since I was running so low on bitter sprays though at this point, I decided to just take the L and march it straight through, losing 9 blue Pikmin along the way. But it's okay, because Pikmin lives are not important and do not matter in the slightest. On the final floor, I easily cheese the boss by constantly swapping between captains during the fight, and we exit the cave now with mostly clean hands and no evidence of our crime. With that done, there's only one cave left to tackle, and anyone who's played this game will know exactly which one I'm talking about. The Submerged Castle is infamously challenging normally, although for my many years of playing this game, I can usually get through most of the floors without the water wraith spawning. But because of the nature of this challenge, that's not going to be an option anymore. Almost every floor of this cave has enemies who have swallowed treasure, and so the only way to get those treasures without increasing my kill count is to sit and wait for the water wraith to spawn. Let it kill the enemies for me by crushing them, and then somehow get the loot back without dying. Right off the bat on sub-level 1, we encounter a fiery bulblax who swallowed our cookie. I grab the other 2 treasures with ease, and then we proceed to sit in this hole for the next several minutes while I wait for my friend to show up. A random thought that came to me while I was mindlessly waiting for the wraith to spawn was that almost every single fiery bulblax in this game seems to have a treasure inside them for some reason. Like, there's so many floors with tons of enemies, and only the fiery ones have loot. The only fiery bulblax I can actually think of that doesn't have a treasure inside is the...
Well, it was faster than I expected.
Since my Pikmin are safe in this gutter, I lure the bulblax all the way to my base so that the wraith can crush him there, allowing me to get the treasure back instantly once his back is turned. Sub-level 2 always has the same layout, but the enemy spawns are RNG. Luckily though, everything seems to spawn far away, so I'm able to unblock the hole and grab the first treasure with ease. In the large room, I'm struck with a stroke of genius, as I realize I can use this bomb beetle to take out the bulbman for me instead of having to wait for the water wraith. I also managed to somehow space it perfectly such that the mother dies but all the babies survive, so I'm able to add them to my party, which will be very, very useful on the coming floors. Floor 3 ends up being the trickiest of this cave, at least for this challenge, since there's a ton of enemies. Lots of them are electric, and there's a withering blowhog with the treasure. I start off by luring the bulbman into a wall using one of its relatives, before exploring and finding the true treasures I need all the way across the map. I actually don't end up needing to wait for the water wraith at all though, since these dweevils just kept trolling me over and over and over, and before I could even get the treasures back, the water wraith had just shown up to party. Surprisingly, this actually makes things a lot easier since the wraith just crushes all the pesky dweevils for me, but he unfortunately murders a whole squad of newborn bulbmen. Oh well. I claim no responsibility. Eventually, I managed to get the water wraith to follow me all the way around behind my base, where I can then bitter spray the blowhog just as it goes by and have it crushed without me dealing the final blow. Sub-level 4 is normally the hardest in the cave, but it actually ends up being pretty easy for me since there's no enemies here that I need the wraith to kill. I get a few more bulbmen after a random bomb blows up their mother, and then I'm very lucky to discover all 3 treasures just waiting for me on the same side of the map. I do unfortunately have to kill this glint beetle, however, since you need to hit it for the treasure to pop out, and it won't take any damage from anything else. Finally, we reach the last floor and give our wraith friend the sweet justice it deserves, and net a few more purples in the process, giving me the 100 I need for a certain something in the final area. Between streams, I once again do an excessive amount of grinding so that I can get my bitter and spicy spray counts back up. We land in the Wistful Wild, and I immediately realized that this is going to be the most difficult area thus far for this challenge. You see, the Wistful Wild has a Gatling Grink wandering around the overworld, and nearly every surface treasure has been swallowed by, or is being guarded by, enemies. That means, in order to preserve my kill count, I will have to lure him into killing almost everything. I couldn't find any logic or reason behind the Gatling Grunk's pathing. Sometimes he would follow Almar anywhere I wanted, but other times he would just give up and turn around. Sometimes he would wander all the way up to my base and just camp there, where on other days he wouldn't even move away from this one black gate. So I was at a loss for a while, until I realized there was another way I could get at least some treasures back without its help. Instead of using the Grink to kill these bulborbs in front of my base like I had originally planned, I managed to painstakingly lure them all the way down to this middle area, which allowed the cannon beetle to just barely get the kill. This let me carry the Doomsday apparatus back without my purples being eaten, since losing a single one would make this treasure unliftable. I then hired the cannon beetle a second time, but this time I used his incredible knockback to fling myself up onto this ledge. This let the president throw Pikmin over to Olimar and allowed him to tear down this gate from the other side without being eaten by the crab. I then drained the water and smashed the electric fence so that I could later grab the pine cone. I woke up bright and early the next day and snuck around the backside of the Bulborb arena, realizing that if I only broke this other black gate, which I literally never used in normal playthroughs, it would force the Pikmin to carry the treasure around along a much safer path. I then grabbed the pine cone from under this unsuspecting cannon beetle, leaving only 2 treasures left, both of which had been swallowed by enemies. It was at this point that my descent into madness began. For some strange reason, I could not, no matter how hard I tried, get the Gatling Grink to follow me up to the upper side of the map, where both the orange Bulborb and the creeping chrysanthemum I needed were hiding. I tried luring him, I tried pushing him, I saw him getting stuck on this bridge, and so I allowed the Burrownit to destroy it just to see if that would manipulate the AI somehow. All of my efforts were in vain.
Okay, come here, Grink. I need you. I literally need you. What is his obsession with this bridge? Yes, could. Come here, come here. I know you can come down here. No, 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 no. Oh, no, no, no. Why are you doing this to me? Why do you hate happiness? Okay, we're getting some... No. Grinky, come back. You just don't love me anymore, do you? I really thought we had something. I just don't think it's working out anymore. I don't know, man. Like, you're just different these days, you know? Like I want you to be on one side of the bridge, and you're on the other side of the bridge, and not doing, you know, the one thing that I need you to do to make this relationship work, you know? And it's just like, I don't know, man. And I don't think this can keep going. I don't think it's healthy for you. I don't think it's healthy for me.
Groink, you're so tall. And you're gonna make my enemies fall. Groink, I need you to perform some murders I can't do. Groinky, 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 oh yeah, oh, groinky, 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 oh yeah, oh, orange Bulborb and a creeping chrysanthemum are the ones I need defeated, but you say they're too far. Gatling Groink, I thought you were my friend. This has to end. Oh, groinky, 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 oh yeah, oh, groinky. 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 Groinky, please.
Wait, where is he? Oh, you're right here. Oh my god, you're right here. Yes. Day 69, I'm telling you. I'm telling you. It's the day. He's coming. He's coming to help. Coming to blow up some Bulborbs for me. There we go. Nice. Beautiful. Good job.
After all of this, I felt a surge of motivation returning, and I decided not to end the stream until I'd successfully retrieved the last above-ground treasure. At the start of day 70, the Grink seemed unwilling to wander up to the chrysanthemum pit, but after hiding my Pikmin up in this corner and waiting patiently, he eventually decided to wander all the way up there on his own, allowing him to take out the last enemy, and netting me every single above-ground treasure without a single kill. Riding on my surge of determination, I headed straight for the Cavern of Chaos. Only 3 caves left before it was all over. And after all I had just struggled through,
I do believe the worst is behind us.
the Cavern of Chaos starts out as you'd expect, with lots and lots of chaos. I had to reset the very first floor several times just to get through because these bombers kept sneaking into my base and blowing up my Pikmin while I wasn't looking, but eventually I got a favorable spawn and was able to get the treasure back without being exploded. Sublevel 2 at first appeared to be a fairly straightforward floor, It has 3 bulblaxes with 3 treasures, and no enemies that can damage one another. And since I didn't have many red Pikmin, the simplest thing to do would be to punch them all to death, because surely there was no way of avoiding these kills. Surely.
Okay, I have a theory. Because they can walk over these. What if I could push them or something? I don't know. Okay, so what if I get him into here, right? If we push him into this corner. Okay, what if I go here? Get him to... Oh! Come on. No! Okay, hold on.
If I could successfully trick these bulblaxes into walking off the cliff on their own, that would save me 3 whole kills. Since if an enemy with a treasure voids out on their own, the treasure will simply fall on the ledge beside as though they died. But the layout of this floor looked as though it would be impossible to pull off. The way most large bulblaxes and bulborbs work in this game is they have a starting point and a set radius programmed from that starting point where they can travel. Once they wake up, they will travel towards the nearest captain or Pikmin within that radius and attack. But if they reach the edge of that radius, they will simply give up and turn around, going back to sleep in their original starting point. My second roadblock was the shape of the sublevel, being a large circle with very few exposed ledges. In order to get them to walk off the cliff, the ledges have to be very short, and there were tall walls all over the place. And since the voids are all around the outside, I wouldn't simply be able to have them chase me off the ledge like in other caves. One of the bulblaxes spawned somewhat near the hole, which was on a ledge that jutted out pretty far. This, unfortunately, didn't work out as the angle wasn't quite right, and in order to get the angle I needed, I'd have to go too far out of his range. But then I tried doing it in reverse. I lured the bulblax to the other smaller jut out and stood beside the hole.
Me from here? Come towards me. I'm so glad I tried to figure this out. Okay.
Unfortunately, my celebration was short-lived. Because the ledge with the hole jutted out was at the best angle possible to pull off this trick, the other 2 would prove to be far more difficult, as the hole was outside of their maximum travel radius. I tried luring the second one as far as I could and forcing him to walk at an angle, but I was not successful. I simply couldn't get the captains far enough out. After going back to the drawing board for a bit, I realized that while I couldn't get the captains in the right spot, maybe I could do it with a Pikmin, since I could throw them up onto these tall ledges and give the bulblax a slightly harsher walking angle. So I set up my Pikmin, lured him as far as I could, and crossed my fingers.
Come on! Fall. Just fall. Let's go. Okay, one more. We got one more. Where there's a will, there's a way.
With this success, I was fully committed to making sure I did this floor without any kills. The third one, however, spawned in the worst possible position to pull it off. A tall wall blocked every possible ledge within his walking radius, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't get him to go any further. There simply wasn't a good enough angle for me to pull this off a third time. And after another half hour of testing, I accepted that I would never be able to get this one off without killing it. So I reset the floor. For some reason, I had never thought of this before, because while the actual layout of the sublevel is always the same, the enemy positions might vary. On my second try, all 3 of them spawned very close to one another. And while one was still blocked by a tall wall, this revelation proved that I might be able to eventually get a layout where all 3 of them could be lured to their demise. So I began resetting, over and over and over, literally dozens of times, because there's so many tall walls on this floor, and I am either very unlucky or the odds of getting the RNG I needed were incredibly slim. But eventually, I finally loaded up the game and saw what I needed. All 3 of them sleeping peacefully near a jutting out ledge, just waiting to walk to their demise. And then finally, I was able to successfully collect all 3 treasures on sublevel 2 without a single kill.
Come on. Yes. 3 fiery bulblaxes, and I did not touch them. They all jumped off by themselves.
Well, at least the worst is behind us now. Right? On sublevel 3, I sneak some treasure past these creeping chrysanthemums, and on floor 4, I convince these Emperor bulblaxes that explosives are in fact safe to eat. And since they believe everything they see on the internet and forgot to do their own research, I take no responsibility for their untimely demises. The 5th floor is a boring rest floor, and floor 6 is a very annoying gauntlet of electricity and wollywogs. Sadly, one of these wollywogs has a treasure, and since there are no enemies here that can hurt each other, I am forced to get my very first kill since the Perplexing pool. All good things must come to an end eventually, including the lives of these definitely not innocent cave-dwelling frogs. Sublevel 7 continues this trend, unfortunately, forcing me to take out this puffy blowhog as well. Floor 8 is a floor that I thought would be very difficult because there's literally dozens upon dozens of dwarf bulborbs and 2 Gatling Grinks. But since my white Pikmin are addicted to apple juice, they just rush straight for the only treasure on this floor, and sped it past all the enemies so fast they remain unscathed. Sublevel 9 is a little bit toxic, I won't lie. And on the final floor, we take out a giant crab in one cycle, and we reclaim this giant baby head? Yeah, I never really understood this treasure. Literal nightmare fuel. We head to the Hole of Heroes next by scooting past this unsuspecting cannon beetle, and it was at this point in the run I realized my kill count was going to spike drastically. This next cave is effectively a boss rush, and so my goal of finishing the game with sub 50 kills was looking a little bleak. We start off the longest cave in the game by grabbing this acorn on floor 1, and then immediately run into another beetle who messes with our treasure gauge. Luckily I knew that there was only one treasure here, but since it was underground and I couldn't use my gauge to help, I pretty much had to scour the entire floor. But in the end, it was all worth it, because the treasure I found was called the Essence of True Love, symbolizing that no matter how hard, dumb, self-imposed challenges of 20-year-old video games can get, it's always worth it in the end if you do it in the name of love. Or something like that. I loaded up the game on my final stream of this challenge, hopping straight into sublevel 3, where the only treasure on the floor conveniently spawned right beside my base. Sublevel 4 begins our boss rush with the pileated Snagret, so I take him out and steal his money. I skip floor 5 because it's a useless rest floor, and on sublevel 6, I grab some peanut butter from out of this dank watery pond area, which I can only imagine does not taste very good after being stored in this environment for so long. Not that I even like peanut butter anyway, so yeah, I'm sorry, please don't cancel me. Sublevel 7 starts off pretty fine. All we'd have to do is take out this Blaster, right? Just to make sure, since my curiosity got the better of me, I double checked to make sure the Blaster couldn't be damaged by the cannon beetles, and I was correct, thankfully. Then I made a decision that I once again regret for another whole hour of gameplay.
I need to test something here. Yeah, that doesn't damage you, but what if it were to hit... Like, can I get it to hit the tail at all? Okay, what if I were to bitter spray you? Would the rocks hurt you now? Oh my gosh, they hurt. That is... It's so small, though. Oh, that sucks.
Yep, that's right. If you bitter spray the Blaster, for some reason, the boulders actually damage it, even though they don't damage it normally. So I began another incredibly long and arduous task of trying ridiculous shenanigans just to save a single kill. I very quickly realized that there were two major roadblocks to making this work. First one is the fact that the cannon beetle boulders only deal the tiniest fraction of damage to the Blaster, and only while it's bitter sprayed, meaning that I would have to get the health down incredibly low to the point where it was literally one hit away without actually killing it using my Pikmin first. The second problem was the fact that some bosses slowly regenerate HP in this game, meaning that by the time I weakened the Blaster with my Pikmin, bitter sprayed it and moved my Pikmin away so they wouldn't get the kill, and then lured the cannon beetles into shooting it, the Blaster had already regenerated too much health. And even when I had two beetles shooting at the same time, they couldn't deal enough damage to outpace the healing. At some point, I realized I could also punch the Blaster to deal damage when it's turned to stone. So once I weakened it with my Pikmin, I froze it and pushed it between two beetles, punching and pelting it with rocks simultaneously and praying that the boulder would be the one to deal the final blow.
I don't care. I don't care that I used like 15 bitter sprays on that. I think that was good. I literally watched the footage like twice at 0.25 times speed. I'm like 80% sure. I'm 80% sure that it was the boulder that got the last hit.
I confirmed that it was in fact the cannon beetle who got the last hit, since at the moment the Bloister exploded, the boulder had just hit and Olimar was still winding up for a punch. So we grabbed this ring and head deeper into the cave, knowing that, for absolutely sure this time, without even the slightest shadow of a doubt, that the worst was finally. Sublevel 9 is incredibly infamous for having one of almost every type of Bulborb and Bulblax in the game. However, as usual, the fiery Bulblax is the only one that actually has any treasure. So I punch it to death through this wall to avoid killing anyone else, lure the Bulbear into the corner and grab the treasure, only to realize that there was a dwarf Bulborb hiding under the fiery Bulblax's corpse, who immediately eats a white Pikmin and forces me to reset. On my second attempt, the fiery Bulblax unfortunately spawns too far away from the gate, so I head into the main area and get both him and the spotty Bulbear stuck on this wall before punching him to death once more. Sublevel 10 has 2 Emperor Bulblaxes, but only one of them has a treasure, so I skillfully weave my way around him, take out the poison in front, and then kill him with my overpowered purple Pikmin. Sublevel 11 gives us no time to breathe, spawning us directly behind the birth hole of an Empress Bulblax. I immediately bitter spray the newborn and rush to the other side to attack the face, and hope that the mother will crush the children for me during the battle so that we don't have to deal with them. Unfortunately, one larvae survives right after I take out the Empress, so I make the president be useful for once and have him babysit while Olimar does the important treasure collecting work. Continuing the unfortunate trend of rising my kill count, I take out a glint beetle on sublevel 12, the man at legs on 13, a beady long legs on 14, and finally the raging long legs on the final floor, where these jelly floats decide to troll me for the first time ever now that I can't really hurt them. With that cleared, we only had one last challenge remaining, and at this point I had almost given up on getting sub 50 kills. With 14 more floors in the next cave, it would be next to impossible to spare enough enemies, but we had to try. So I assembled my squad consisting of almost no red Pikmin because they are useless in this game.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine.
And dove into my final challenge. On sublevel 1 of the Dream Den, the game does not hold back, giving me hordes of Bulborbs, crabs, and jelly floats that I need to sneak past. I fail twice and I have to reset due to Bulborbs eating my white Pikmin and dying, but eventually I get a treasure spawn with a relatively clear path that I can use to grab the zucchini. On sublevel 2, I use the Gatling Grink on the tower to take out the enemies in the way, but unfortunately I have to take him out with my Pikmin, bringing my kill count up to 47. On the third floor, I use a trick that I actually do in my normal playthroughs anyways. The Bulbear with the treasure here actually falls from the sky, but it only spawns if you have a Pikmin with you. So I take a single white to wake up the beast, and then easily trick it into walking off the cliff between these two ledges. Floor 4 proves to be quite long and tedious, but I managed to convince these cannon beetles to have a turf war, and with a few well-timed bitter sprays and my speedy white Pikmin, we actually managed to get the treasure back without too much trouble, which surprised me because I expected this to be one of the more difficult floors. On sublevel 5, this fiery Bulblax has somehow swallowed an apple that is larger than it. But like so many of its kin in the Cavern of Chaos, I teach it about Newton's Law. Floor 6 has a jelly float with a crystal ball, however I can avoid increasing my kill count here by knocking it down with a bitter spray and letting this cannon beetle do all the work for me. I use a similar strategy on floor 7 to take out this puffy blowhog, using the Dirigibug's bombs instead of boulders, because everyone knows explosives are more fun than rocks. On sublevel 8, my treasure gauge is once again being tampered with, but fortunately I won't need it since both treasures are visible. I take my time going through and dealing with the hazards, snag this creeping looking doll, and then go after the pumpkin, which then this happens.
What the heck is this? What is this funky bullshit?
I was actually about to reset thinking that I was softlocked, but after an incredible amount of throwing and shenanigans, I somehow managed to land the Pikmin to where they can clip it back out of the wall. Sublevel 9 is a useless rest floor, and on floor 10 I am immediately surrounded by water and bombarded with enemies. The only treasure on this floor is in possession of a random jelly float for some reason. So I hide my Pikmin in a corner, bitter spray the jelly float, and let the Grink do the killing for me. Then I stun him as well and sneak the treasure back to the base before running to the hole. Sublevel 11 proves to be another not difficult, but just incredibly tedious floor. It was just then, upon entering sublevel 12, that I suddenly realized I had reached what would be, without a doubt, the hardest part of the entire challenge. The true final boss, the ultimate test of my random, oddly specific strategies used to avoid getting kills. It all came down to this moment. There are 2 treasures on this floor, one of which is inside a large orange bulb orb. The problem is there's 2 bulb orbs, and my treasure gauge does not work here, thanks to the beetle whose name I definitely remember. So I have a 50-50 chance of choosing the correct one. However, this floor also has rocks that fall from the ceiling in random positions. Rocks that can, technically, kill enemies, meaning that if I wanted to avoid a kill here and achieve a goal of sub 50 kills, I would have to weaken one of these bulb orbs, lure them into a position to be hit by a random falling rock that could spawn almost anywhere, and then even if that all succeeds, there's only a 50-50 chance that I actually picked the correct bulb orb. I tried, and I really tried, but it just wasn't happening. And it was in this same sitting that I had started out with taking out the Bloister using all the ridiculous boulder shenanigans. I was hours into this stream and hoping to finish, only 2 floors from the end, and it simply wasn't working out. I knew it was technically possible. I knew that the math checked out, but unless I was willing to spend possibly another several hours grinding this, it most likely wasn't going to be RTA viable. I put a poll in my chat asking what I should do, and they all agreed that the point of this challenge wasn't to do everything in one segment like a speedrun, but rather to test and prove just how few kills you can complete the game with. And after a unanimous vote in favor it, I used a save state for the first time in the entire challenge run. Now, this still didn't make it easy, and I made sure to only use the state at the very start of the sublevel, so that I had to do everything the normal way. But this allowed me to reload the game if I failed and still have the same bulb orb carrying the treasure, as well as having the boulder falling spawns all in the same places on each attempt. And even after doing all of this, it was still difficult to pull off. The boulders tend to start falling pretty early once you're within a certain radius, which made getting the bulb orb into position incredibly difficult. But at last, it worked.
Okay, now I'm forgetting where the rock is. Okay. Thank you for supporting my decision, chat, and saving me a lot of pain there.
With that conquered, finally, we proceeded to sublevel 13, where I had no choice but to kill a bulb orb myself for an A&W bottle cap, and we headed to the last floor, where I was finally able to get revenge on Louie for all his crimes. We took out the Titan Weevil, grabbed all his stuff, and exited the cave, finishing the challenge with 201 treasures and 49 enemy kills. So there you have it, everyone. 49 kills, including everything in the Piklopedia, pellets, beetles, candy pops, and all. And as I mentioned at the start, I technically could have saved 1 kill in the intro by using my pellets better, so as far as I can tell, the minimum number of kills necessary to complete this challenge is actually 48. I was very pleasantly surprised that I actually ended up getting sub 50, and even though there was some very painful hair-pulling experiences, I had a ton of fun with this challenge. And I definitely recommend giving it a try if you're a fan of Pikmin 2 and want to try and find a way to spice things up. And if you can find a way to finish this challenge with this rule set with less than 48 kills, definitely let me know in the comments and send me a video to see where I can improve things. And who knows, maybe if enough tricks are discovered, I'll come back and try this again at some point. Thank you all so much for watching once again. I've never really made any videos like this before, so I hope you enjoyed. If you did, leave a like. And if you want to see more challenge runs like this, maybe with some other Pikmin games next time, let me know in the comments below and subscribe so you don't miss them when that comes out. And if you want to see me stream all these challenges live, you can head over to my Twitch channel and support me there. I'll see you all on the next one.